the first time we went to Congregation Sinai, Rita Pearl came up to me and talked to me and asked me had I ever thought about joining Hadassah. And of course, I was a third-generation life member, so yes. But we had a campaign, and my father had always been a key man in Los Angeles for our federation in Los Angeles, which was a fancy way of talking about people who went out and solicited. And he'd always solicited for the federation, so I knew about soliciting for a federation. And I was asked if I would solicit for the federation by Marilyn Hanloff. And I said, of course. I mean, I didn't even know you could say no. And so I went to solicit for what we used to have a neighborhood kind of division where you went door to door. San Jose was a pretty small place in those days. And that's how I got my start in what eventually became the Federation. All of 4 of my grandchildren who live in San Jose went to Yavna. And also then they went to, one of my grandchildren went to Kehila, Jewish high school, and my son-in-law, who is a past chair of Jewish Family Service, was instrumental in the creation of Kehila. So it's kind of been part of our family tradition. So my grandmother, who was, I would say, like many, many immigrants, very, very poor, always believed that the most important thing was to never say no to anybody who might need something. And she would say, even if you have only a nickel, you should always be sure to give half of it to somebody who asks you for it. Of course, being a child, I would think, how do you cut that nickel in half? But she was kind of generous to a fault, almost, when it came to tzedakah. This came out of course, the way in which she was taught by her mother. My mother was born in Russia. My grandmother and my mother would speak Yiddish, and so there was always Yiddish in the home. And of course, it was pre-World War II when I was born, and then the whole issue of the Holocaust. And my grandmother lost so many of her siblings and her nieces and nephews and extended family. And so all of that awareness about the Jewish people. So I would say less than the Judaism, the Jewish people and their need for support. And I had the opportunity to have a wonderful teacher whose name was Isidore Traister. And he had such a Jewish soul and talked about the way in which the Jewish people need our support and how we're part of a continuum. Of course, Al grew up in a very different tradition. He grew up in an Orthodox tradition where he went to Jewish day school, he went to Jewish high school, he came to California to get his graduate degree, and that was where we met. And of course, I'd never really even come in contact with anybody who'd grown up in an Orthodox home. I thought if you kept kosher, you were Orthodox. I had no idea about Sabbath observance or restrictions or any of those things. And so introduction to his family was kind of mind-opening. So he came out of a tradition that believed very firmly in tzedakah also, and that we shared. Amy, my older daughter, when she had her first job, loved to give money to causes. And she knew that in our family we believed in giving 10%. But then when she met Dan, who is a financial guy, and he looked at her income tax, he nearly died because she was giving 35% of her income away. So he said, no, this doesn't work. But he wanted to marry her, and she said, well, she would marry him, but he had to agree to give 10% or she wouldn't marry him. So he used to talk about that when they were first married, that he couldn't marry her if he didn't promise to give 10% of his money away. The challenges for Sinai, like the challenges for all Jewish institutions, is how do you grow beyond pediatric Judaism, so that once the children are bar and bat mitzvahed, that the parents want to stay connected to a Jewish identity. And I think this is what faces all of our Jewish institutions. My younger daughter is the current president of the Jewish Federation, which is quite remarkable and rewarding to Al and to me, because not only is she lovely in every way, but she's dedicated and hardworking and creative in her approach to involving other people. Al and I used to say, if we have Jewish grandchildren, we'll feel we were successful. Well, we have Jewish grandchildren. They're all very dedicated. Now we say, well, we want to have Jewish great-grandchildren, so we hope that will be something that our grandchildren will want, not just do, but will want to do. Well, you realize, of course, that Judaism is a religion that says, it doesn't matter what you say, the question is, what do you do? And you can say anything. It's not a matter of what's in your heart. It's nice if what you do is in your heart. It's more important what you do is in your hands. So if you believe that you want a Jewish survival, then you have to put resources in that direction. Because of my mother, who set up both an endowment fund at the Jewish Federation and a family foundation, we have kind of begun to participate through the concept of legacy, although we presently feel that teaching the grandchildren to participate in the family foundation may be the most effective way for our family to continue